Hello everybody, my name's Rosie. Lovely to see you all. Hope you're doing well. I'm just going to mute myself. That's better. Wonderful. Hello. Hopefully you can see lots of bright colours and lots of Christmas shapes. And I'm going to show you how to make some very, very easy cards and tags and just wonderful Christmassy things. Hopefully some of you have seen my sessions before, and if you did watch my kind of abstract background kind of painting, we're going to do the same thing today, but we're going to make it a bit Christmassy. So hopefully it's going to be super fun, and I'm going to show you. This is a mess, there's loads of stuff going on here, so I'll talk you through it all. So I'll try and move this nicely without throwing things on the floor. So here you will find a big jamboree of colour and pattern and glitter and metallic and just lovely things. And we're going to recreate that today. So we're going to recreate this on some card, and then we're just going to chop it up and we're going to make it all Christmassy. So it should be super fun and super easy. The idea behind this is that we don't need to use paintbrushes. We don't really even need paint pots because I like to just pour the paint onto the paper itself. So it kind of means that we don't need to use loads and loads of materials. It's fairly cheap, and hopefully it should be super, super fun. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how we create this kind of background really, really easily. I've got a couple of examples here. One second. I realised I've just put paper everywhere and didn't consider the fact that it's all on top of each other. It's going to be an absolute mess to move around. So let's have a look. So we've got my two example pieces here, and then these are all the sorts of things we're going to make with it. So I'm going to move those out of the way, and we'll talk about these later. This is when we start to get festive. This is when we do Christmassy things, like a lovely Christmas star. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself, so I have got here some white card and some craft card. Now you can use any kind of card you want, you can use any colour you like. I would always say don't use dark colours, but actually I did it on some black card the other day and it works really, really well. So it kind of depends what you're into, what sort of colours you like. I really like neon colours and bright colours, so we're going to use all of those sorts of things today. So this is an A4 piece of craft card. Which is probably the most readily available shape that you would have. So you can either cover the whole area and then we could chop it in half to then put on top of a folded piece of card like this. So you'd almost mount it on top to then turn into a greetings card. Or you could just cover the whole space, then fold that in half and make that into a card. It's entirely up to you. But I've also got some A3 card, which is double the size. You'll see there. Now, I know most people don't have kind of readily available access to A3 card. You can buy it in your, your stationery shops fairly cheaply. But I'm going to start on the A3 because it's easier to show you. You don't have to do it on A3. Essentially, as long as you cover a load of space, and it doesn't matter how many pieces you do, you can do as many as you like. We're going to end up chopping it up anyway. So don't worry if you don't have A3. You can always stick to A4. You might just do double the amount. Depends how many cards and tags you want to make. If you've got hundreds to make, then you're going to need a whole pack of this stuff. So the second thing that you're going to need, which is the most important thing, is a old card. So I think most of you will have, so this is a Go Outdoors one, just like an old store card. You know, when you used to go to the shops and they say, would you like a loyalty card? You'll get 10% off, and you go, okay, sure. And then that card goes in your purse and you never, ever use it ever again. Now we've got a use for it. So the reason that I use these is because they're plastic. You can do it with pieces of thick cardboard if you want. It's just that they won't last because the paint will saturate it and make it quite soft. So you want something quite hard and with a really thin flat edge. You could use an old ruler. So I've used rulers before and that works exactly the same. But I think most people have got one of these annoying things in their wallets that they've not used for years. And the great thing is they're easily washable. You could even go and use them in the shop again if you so wish. They might just have a bit of paint stuck on them, but that's okay. they should still work. Yeah, we're not going to demolish it. We're just going to use it to spread paint around. That's all. And that's why this is so fun, because you don't really need to prepare very much. You're just going to throw paint at stuff. So the reason we're going to use this is because it creates a lovely effect with the paint, and it means you can use different colours quite quickly, quite easily, and the kind of effect you get with the colours mixing is slightly different to if you were mixing with a paintbrush. When you mix two colours with a paintbrush, what tends to happen is those colours turn into a different colour. Whereas with this is where the magic's going to happen, and I'm going to show you this right now. So I'm going to start with some colours. So you might be able to see back here that I've got some neon acrylic paint. I've also just got some standard acrylic paint. This can be bog standard, doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be expensive. You can buy the cheapest acrylic paint in the land and it will still work. We don't really need it to be super pigmented because we want to be able to mix the colours quite nicely. So don't worry about getting fancy stuff. All I would say is that as an added bit of extra sparkle, if you get yourself a metallic paint, and again, it doesn't have to really be acrylic, it could be poster paint and it would probably still work. It's just that I have all this cheap acrylic knocking about and it works really, really well. So we're going to start with, well, you can start with whatever colour you like, but I always start with a sort of lighter colour and then I will build up. So let's just go ahead and see what happens. So I've got some yellow acrylic paint here and I'm literally just going to squeeze a blob onto the paper. It can be a big blob, it can be a little blob. What I would say is if you're doing multiple pieces, so say you've covered your table with loads of bits of cardboard, you might do quite a big blob and then you might transfer it onto the different pieces of card so you can get a little production line going. But I'm just going to do one for now, just because my camera doesn't have, well, this room doesn't have much space because it's full of paint and pens. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our store card and then we're going to start spreading it. And you can spread it quite thin or you can spread it quite thick, but it's just about experimenting with shapes and the spreading of the paint and see what happens. So I'm going to bring this a bit closer to you now so you can sort of see. And you can see how thin I've spread that. You can see the card shining through. And what you'll start to get is these kind of tiny little areas here where it looks a sort of mottled, where the paint's almost sort of started to run out. That's good, that's what we want, because when we start to use different colours, this is going to show through and it's going to have a lovely marbled effect. So once you've spread out your paint, you make sure there's no paint left on your card and then you can move on to the next colour. And you can do this over, like I say, you can do this over a number of pieces. You can really go crazy with it. But I'm just going to do one for now and then I will show you what it looks like on a piece of brown craft card so you can see the difference in colours. So what colour shall we do next? I think we're going to go in with a purple, a nice bright purple. Now, I'm using sort of bright neon colours because they're my faves. They're my absolute favourite colours. But you could make this even more kind of festive if you just use festive colours. So I taught this class the other day and one of the guys doing it just used red paint, green paint and gold paint. And that worked really, really beautifully. So you don't have to use all these fancy bright colours. I don't know when to stop with colour. I just keep adding more and more and more. So you can see I've added another blob here and I'm going to spread again. And you will see that I'm purposely spreading over the yellow because you'll get all these different effects. And you can still see the yellow coming through. That's what's so beautiful about using this card. You wouldn't get that with a paintbrush because it would sort of mix the colours together with the bristles. So with a card, it means you're getting all the colours showing through and you can get all these weird sort of effects where the card sort of slipped or you've gone in a different direction. And also you will notice that I have covered most of this A3 sheet already. I'm going to add loads more colour to it, but it's a really quick way of painting. So what shall we go with next? Maybe we'll go in with an orange. Oh, hello. Orange. Oh, there we go. The orange needed a bit of encouraging. And you're just going to, I would always recommend trying to cover as much of the area as you can, because then when you come to chop up your card, there's not going to be any piece without pattern on it. It means all of it's going to be beautiful. And you're just sort of, oh, you're just doing whatever you feel, really. It's just good to have a play. And also what's quite fun is when you realise that there's paint still on the card, you're just by trying to get rid of all the paint off your card creates really beautiful patterns. So even the cleaning up process is quite fun. So let's go in with, let's go in with some blue actually. There we go. And you don't have to do this many colours if you don't want. You can do just a few and you just see what happens. I just love that you kind of see all the colours showing through, and you're just sort of covering, just filling space really. Oh yeah, beautiful. And hopefully you'll be able to see, if I sort of bring this closer, you'll be able to see all these sort of colours showing through and all the sort of mottled effects. Hopefully you can see that okay. And then I think maybe we'll go in with a darker colour. So I might try this sort of darker purple just to add a bit of depth to it, just a little bit. And then I might use some of the metallic. See, now we've sort of covered this and I've got quite a lot of ink left on here, or paint should I say, that this is the point where you go, right, well now I can move on. I mean, that's a whole A3 piece done already. And then we can move on to another piece of card and fill that space as much as we want. And I'm doing this much slower than I usually would because I'm sort of explaining the process, but you can hopefully see how quick this can be if you need it to be, if you've not got much time. I'm going to cover this one because I might as well while I'm here. And in fact, while I'm doing that, I'm going to pop this over to my radiator so it's got a bit of time to dry, because I am going to add to it shortly. Oh, come on now, play ball. There we go. Lovely. We nearly had a situation then with the very wet piece of paper falling onto some lovely t-shirts that I've made. There we go. And then maybe we'll just go in with one more colour. Ah, yes, we wanted to do some metallic, didn't we? So I'll do some metallic now on here. And that just gives it a bit of texture because it's shiny. It will just shine in the light nicely. And you can make this a bit thicker if you want to be able to see it more. In fact, I'm just going to add a little bit more onto there. Lovely. Just fill that space. Fill all the gaps. And I'm not thinking about anything much other than filling it. And just spreading it out with that card. Oh, lovely. Very nice. I think all it needs, there's a little bit left over that I've obviously got on, which was the orange. It looks really lovely against the purple. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of orange very quickly because I'm a perfectionist. Oh, lovely. That's making it. I think that's why the neon colours work quite nicely as well, because they shine quite nicely in the light as well. Perfect. And it's as simple as that. So you have already created a beautiful piece just with an old store card, spreading paint along the card. So I'm going to pop this onto the radiator, hopefully, without it falling. Oh no, we're having a mare here. Come on, there we go. That'll do. That's just warming up now. So the reason I wanted to put that on the radiator is so that we can add some more marks to it, just to give it a bit more texture. So you'll see here these sort of circular marks that I've made with marker pens. And I'm going to show you that in just a second, but I very quickly want to just go over this craft card for you so you can see the difference in effects that it has. So because it's a darker colour, you'll just get a different look on the piece. So I've gone for this sort of, I don't know, this says pastel blue, but I feel like it might also be classed as a lilac. It's definitely got purple tones to it. It's a nice light colour, so you can see it has a real effect. Now, this is why I wanted to show you the craft card, because you can see this kind of mottled effect you're getting. It's because this craft card is like, well, I don't know why, actually. I think it's because it's not white and it's maybe not used as many chemicals to create the card. So you're getting this lovely sort of like mottled effect underneath the paint, which is quite nice, and you don't get that with the white. So that's why I wanted to show you with this particular colour. And then also the other thing I need to show you, so I'm just going to go in with the purple. I also want to show you glitter as well, because we can't not have glitter on Christmassy things, can we? And because I've gone with a light colour and then a dark colour, you'll see this lovely marbled effect that's being created, which I really love. Now, you don't have to be as kind of random as I am. You can do it in shapes if you so wished. So I've done it, people before have done like sort of squares and lines and made it quite regimented, if that's how you prefer to work. And that still looks great too, because at the end of the day, we're going to chop it up anyway. So it doesn't really matter how you do it. I'm getting very, very painty fingers doing this. I would say that's one of the things that will happen with this sort of work, is that you're more likely to get paint on your fingers than using brushes, I would say, but that's okay. Okay, there we go, that's looking good. So I'm just going to try and clean this card as much as I can. Oh, that's not happening, is it? No, we'll just move this to one side, and I'm just going to have to remember at the end of the session that I've got a very wet store card over there somewhere. So the last thing that I'm going to do on this one is I've got myself some glitter glue. So this is, it says poster paint and then it's got glitter in it. Any kind of glitter glue will do. It doesn't matter what sort you use. This was, excuse me, my dog's barking at the postman. This one was £2.99. You can get them cheaper. You can get them at the range quite cheaply, actually. I think at the range you can get them for maybe £1. So it doesn't matter what sort of glitter it is. Doesn't matter where it came from. But I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to put a dollop there on the card, and then I'm going to spread it over. Now, what I would always say is you do this last, because then the glitter will show up. And because essentially glitter glue is mainly see-through. It doesn't get much colour from it. So you're just adding that last, so that glitter dries on top, and then you get a lovely, I mean, I'm not sure if my camera's going to be able to pick this up, but essentially you'll get a lovely sort of glittery effect. I wonder if you can see that in the light. It's not the greatest light, but there is glitter there, I promise. So you will see as well that what is happening now, so this is a kind of troubleshooting section, is that this card is becoming like a bridge. Can you see that it's like bending? So when you add quite a lot of paint to a piece of card or paper, it's going to start bending naturally. Now that's absolutely fine, don't worry too much about it. But what I would suggest is when you let it dry is maybe put something either end of it to hold it down, just to keep it flat. This will just make it easier later on when we start cutting it up and using it for things, because it's not going to be completely bent. Same will happen if you stick your card on a radiator to sort of warm up and dry quickly. It's going to probably dry in a sort of bendy way. It's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it at all. It just might make it slightly harder to work with when it's dry. But, you know, it's fine. I just didn't want people to have a go and go, why is my card bending? It will be fine. So I'm going to move that to one side, and I'm going to see what's happening with my radiated piece, see how dry it's looking, because it should dry quite quickly because we've spread that paint quite thin. So you'll be able to see on this first one that most of it is dry. It's just the thick bits where it's sort of lumpy that are still a bit wet, but that's okay because I can still show you the next section. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get myself some big pens. I have got a selection of Posca pens, like big, chunky kind of marker pen, chalk pens, paint pens they're sometimes called. You can use these, you can use any kind of marker pen you like, really. If you don't have access to these, don't worry, you don't need to go and buy them if you don't want to. You just want a thick pen, and also a thick pen that you don't mind getting a bit scraggly if it's still wet. If you wait for it to dry 100%, then don't worry too much. But if, like me, you're very impatient and you want to crack on, then these sort of pens are really good because they're quite hardy. They don't mind being messed about with or getting paint on them. They'll still work. It's just that they are quite pricey. So I totally understand you don't have to use these at all. You don't even have to do this section. If you're happy with the way your paint looks, you can go straight onto the cutting up part. This just adds a bit more texture and a bit more pattern. And I just think it's fun. Oh, good morning, by the way, to everyone. Thank you for all saying where you're from. I'm in Leicester and it's quite sunny, which is nice because it was horrible yesterday. very, very rainy. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make some big chunky marks on my piece. And I'm not going to think about this too much. It doesn't have to be a picture of anything. It doesn't have to look good. You could get your child to do this and it would probably look just as good, maybe better, because they don't have those preconceptions of what things are supposed to be look good, or you know, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, I'll maybe do big circles with one of the colours. And you can see I'm just going ahead and going around all the wet bits because it doesn't really matter. Again, it's going to be chopped up. It doesn't matter what happens to it. It can be as messy as you so wish and it's still going to look great. And you can see I'm just going to make random marks. Lines are quite good. Stripes. It can be as abstract as you so wish. It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to look a certain way. And I really like this kind of art because it's more about the process than the finished product. It will look good. If you spread a load of paint on a piece of card, add a few patterns, and then chop it up, it will look great, I promise. As long as you cover, I think the only rule of this is that you cover your card from head to toe in colour. That's all you need to do. I'm going to do some more little circles here in the green, maybe do some dots. And then I'll maybe go in with one more colour, maybe go in with this yellow. Maybe do some wiggly lines. You can even do some scribbles. You're just sort of filling space really, so that you're getting all those different textures show through, all those different colours, all those different kind of effects that you get from all of this sort of drawing and scribbling. Okay, I think that's enough marker pen. See if I can fit it back in the box. No, we'll do that later. So now you've got some patterns on there, you've added some texture. The last thing that I'm going to do is you can either use pencil crayons are fine, or I'm going to use these sort of very, very cheap oil pastels. I think they're from a pound shop. And I'm going to do some more detail, so these will be small details. Again, they don't have to be fancy. It's just to add more texture, add more pattern, give it more depth, but I'm not going to think too much about it. I might just look for gaps where there's less stuff going on. So like this bit, for example, and I might just do some little scribbles. It doesn't need to be fancy. Might do some little lines. We might go in with another colour. Let's get a dark green. Dark green out. And now I'm just doing spirals, filling the spaces. And what you can do is you can kind of see the bits that you like, and those bits that you do like, you can maybe leave them alone. And then the bits that are a bit less good, you can cover more. But all of it is going to look great. Let's get one more colour. I might use some black, why not? It's a bit like doing this is like that game you used to do at school where you get a pen and you do a big round squiggle and then you colour in all the sections. It's a bit like that, but more fun. Could do zigzags, do little lines, do some little lines there. Very good. Maybe one more colour. Oh, I don't know when to stop. I just love filling it in. And even if it's like a colour that you can't really see, it will sort of show up in the light, and that's the joy of it, is that it's all kind of, you'll see it as it goes on. You'll see more. The more you look at it, the more you'll see. The other thing that I did the other day is I got loads and loads of paint on my hands, and I just used the paint on my hands to create shapes with my fingers. So you could also do this as finger painting if you don't have a store card. That's quite fun, but much messier, I would say. Okay, so that is our piece complete. I think that's looking really, really good. And even if you don't think it's looking really, really good, it doesn't matter because we're going to chop it up anyway. We're going to do more things with it. So now we can move on to the Christmas section of this session, because you can do this any time of the year, all of the time, and you can use it for whatever you so wish. But now I'm going to do some Christmassy things with it. So here's some examples here. Let's have a look. So it's all about the ways you can use your pattern. So you've got two options really. You can cut out your pattern to make a shape and stick it onto something that is plain, or you can use your pattern as a background and then add things on top of it. So it really depends what you fancy. You can do a bit of both. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to show you how I do all of those things. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, I've got some here's ones I made earlier. So what I've done is these are the ones from a craft card, and you can see I can join those together, and that was an A4 sheet, and I've chopped it in half. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn one into a Christmas tree. So I'm going to turn it over like so, and I'm going to get myself a pencil if I can find it, because there's lots of things on this desk. Here it is. And I'm just going to draw out a really simple Christmas tree. This doesn't have to be fancy. I think actually the more kind of rough and ready that it is, the better that it looks, actually. I don't think it needs to be precise at all. So I'm going to very quickly do a Christmassy tree shape. And I'm really not trying to make it look fancy. It doesn't need to look fancy because we've done such a good job of the pattern. There you go, that'll do. Can you see that? Let's move it a bit closer. Lovely, easy peasy. I'll just add the trunk on the end there. So you can see there's your Christmas tree shape, and that's on the back of that. Lovely. Now I should mention the reason that I've chopped a A4 piece into half is because now I know when I cut this Christmas tree out, this will fit nicely on a folded piece of A4 that will create your greetings card. Now you don't have to fold card. Most people kind of think of greetings cards as having to be something that's folded, but my auntie still hand makes her cards. She's a fabulous artist, and she never makes them into cards. She just does them standalone and then does the writing on the back, and then you just stand it up on your mantelpiece. So you don't even have to do folding if you don't want to do folding. It's not necessary. And actually, if you do it on just a normal piece of card, you're then more likely to sort of frame it when you're done with it. So here I am chopping away. I'm just cutting up my Christmas tree. Now, the great thing about this as well is because, remember, we went from edge to edge and we covered every single part of that surface, all of these little offcuts can be used for things. So remember that. I'm going to pop those to one side. I'm going to chop up my Christmas tree. Okay, looking good. This craft card is quite thick, so this is much harder to cut than kind of normal card, I would say. So you need to have strong hands. But the white card I used was much thinner. You can do it on paper. It doesn't have to be card. It's just that the card will withstand more with the paint. You'll be able to add more layers of paint and it not sort of soak through and get too kind of, you know, wiggly. But yeah, it doesn't have to be super fancy card if you don't want it to be. Okay, nearly done. There we go. So if I turn this over now, let's do the big reveal. If I move all these bits out of the way. Big reveal. Beautiful. So you've got all those patterns coming through, and now you can see why it was great to put all these different elements on it. That's looking beautiful. Love it. So then all we would do is we'd get our A4 card that we folded in half, and we know that that's going to fit on nicely, and that I think would make a beautiful Christmas card. The only thing I would say at this point is we could maybe do with a star on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this down with just normal glue, your normal sort of sticky, Pritt Sticky type glue. You can use PVA. So if I think I'd probably, I'm trying to decide which I'd prefer. I think I would prefer PVA glue. The only thing is, because you've used card, it will probably start to peel up at the edges. So you just need to remember when you've put it down with PVA glue is put something heavy on top of it to hold it down. So you could sort of put, you know, like a book on top of it while it dries. Pritt stick will work better in terms of keeping it stuck down, but it's it doesn't last as long as PVA. That's the only thing I would say. So it's up to you. You could use double-sided sticky tape if you had that and cut it to size. You could cut some little sections off. Double-sided sticky tape is very sticky, so you could use that. Entirely up to you. I would favour PVA, but I'm showing you with Pritt stick just for ease, really. So as long as you remember to sort of hold down your card once you've used PVA, that's the main thing. So then we're going to stick this into shape. I'm going to bring it down close to the bottom because I'm going to add a star. And actually, I think if you do stick it down, so like with this Pritt stick here, it's not incredibly sticky and it might sort of peel up at the edges here, but actually I think that's fine because it gives it that sort of 3D effect like you would get with a tree anyway. So I don't think it needs to be too fancy at all. Use whatever glue you so wish. So now that's stuck down, you've pretty much got a lovely Christmas card. Beautiful. But now we might consider putting a little star on top. So this is where the other bits of paper come into play. So earlier I mentioned about keeping your offcuts, because what you can do with your offcuts is you can cut out smaller shapes. So you can see here I've got a lovely little heart that looks beautiful, and you could use those to add as embellishments. So that's why I would recommend keeping all your bigger bits of offcuts. You could probably throw away your little bits because you're not going to use those, but your sort of bigger offcuts would make great stars or hearts that you can add to your tree. But the other thing that you can do is we can start to look at different paper. So again, Rosie's trying to tidy up her desk. So you'll know if you've seen my sessions before that we love some sheet music and old books. These were both from charity shops. This is an old Vanity Fair that was £1. This sheet music was £1. They last forever because they've got loads of pages and we just use them for collage. So all I would do at this point, I've got a sort of half used, this is why you need to keep all your offcuts, be a bit of a hoarder with your paper. So this is one of the pages from the book. And this is a nice contrast. I think any kind of paper you could use, magazine cutouts, newspaper. It doesn't have to be something that's bought. You could have something that's come through the post for free. As long as it's something with a bit of texture. I just don't want white plain paper. We just want something that's got a bit something to it. And I think old sort of paper, old books, because they've got that sort of brown colour to them, I think they mix nicely with the bright colours we've used on the patterns. And it's just a nice contrast because these are sort of words and then these are kind of mad patterns, right? So I'm going to use a piece of this old book and I'm just going to cut out a little star. Again, I'm going to turn it over. I mean, you don't need to turn it over straight away. You could just turn over the side that you didn't draw on. I don't know if you can see that, but I've done, it's very hard to see. I've done a very little star. And let's see if I can cut it out without making a mess of it because it's very, very tiny. Let's see. So this is where it gets a bit fiddly. So if you are doing this with kids, then this is the bit you'll need to do. Or alternatively, you don't need to cut out fancy shapes. You could just rip things out. So I'm going to show you when we do the sort of book Christmas tree, I'll show you a different variation, which is much easier. So there we have a lovely little star. Beautiful. And we're going to stick that at the top. So this is where the Pritt stick is better for when you're doing little bits like this. And we'll just stick that to the top. Ah, yes, lovely jubbly. If you wanted to go one extra, you could do some little circles and do some little baubles with the book. I think that would look really nice. But there is one variation of how to use your beautiful patterned backgrounds. So the next one we're going to do is this one. This is beautiful. I really love this one. So we're going to get our, so this is the other half of the A4 and this is the patterned background, and then we're going to stick on top of it rather than using it to cut out. So really, really easy. We're going to use our old book and sheet music. So if I just rip a piece off like so, And we'll maybe start with the sheet music because it's a bit wider, and you just want a piece that is not quite as wide as the card you're using. So maybe about there. You see that's ever so slightly less wide. And I'm going to chop that out. And that's quite a thick piece, so I can probably cut that down and use it twice. So which side goes down the lowest? Let's go with that one. That one's quite nice, isn't it? I like that one. So I don't stick it down straight away. What I would probably do is just do it all first and then stick it down afterwards. So that sits there quite nicely. And then what I do is a combination of the two and mix them up. So I'm going to go with this now, but it needs to be ever so slightly wider. So we'll use this bit. Now this bit isn't going to have any writing on, but that's okay because it's going to look good anyway. So we'll pop that there, and then maybe we'll go in with this one, but maybe a bit thinner. And also the other great thing is you don't have to be straight with your cutting, because I think it looks quite nice at a jaunty angle, to be honest with you. So you don't have to be straight. You can make it straight if you prefer and you want to use rulers, but I'm generally speaking going to make them a bit kind of, you know, a slight angle like this. So you will see on this one that they're all ever so slightly off. There's some little gaps, and I just think it gives it a bit more depth. So then we'll go in with our book again. Let's say about there. Pop that there, and you're just sort of getting closer and closer to the top to make your nice Christmas tree. They're getting smaller every time. Let's go in with this one again. I'm going to chop this one along here, and we'll pop that, so make that ever so slightly smaller. Lovely. And you can spread it out. You could leave gaps if you wanted to, so you can use less. That would also work. We're going with this one again. We're getting smaller now. I wonder if that's probably about right, isn't it? Lovely. And then we'll go in with this one. Yeah, that's okay. I think that's okay like that. Very nice. And then I think we can probably just do one more. Maybe just one like that. And then maybe one more tiny bit here. And then we could maybe go in with a star at the top. And then we could also use this offcut here to create our stalk, or a trunk, if you will. And I think that looks pretty good to me. Now I obviously haven't glued those down, but you can then glue it. You can glue from bottom to top, because then you can overlap if you want. And then you can put them in exactly the right place then when you stick them down. And then you could add yourself your star at the... Now, in fact, you could even... Do you remember this star I cut out earlier? If you glued down the square, you wouldn't see the mark where you cut it. And in fact, you could use that. So you've got like a negative space. That would also look nice. So there's your Christmas tree that you put on top of your pattern. But very quickly, the reason I haven't stuck this down is because I want to show you a variation. So this is the one that we've just cut, and here's one that's stuck down, so you can see it's sort of final, you know, the final image, if you will. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe all of this away, because I just want to show you really quickly that if you're not up for cutting, or you struggle with scissors, you don't need to do this at all, because you could rip it if you so wished. So I'm going to get a piece of this, and I'm just going to rip like that. And then you don't need to use the scissors at all. So you're just going to do the same thing, but instead of cutting, you're going to rip. And then you can rip it down to shape, and you might want to, because this is now getting a bit wavy, you might want to stick this down. So I will stick this down so I can show you. And this is just a much easier way. Again, this is something you can do with the kids if you don't want them using scissors. Really, really easy. There you go. So there's your first line stuck down, and then you could go in. So I've really cut this terribly, haven't I? All these little steps. I'm not getting very many straight lines out of this. We'll be okay. So let's rip this one. and then make sure you're going slightly smaller than the one you did before. That's looking good. Okay, and then we can stick that down. That's looking quite nice. And again, we'll go in with the sheet music, make it slightly smaller. Oh, I quite like this one actually. This has got some nice stuff going on. I can ever so slightly peel the straight line off it, then that would work. Yes. And like I say, you don't have to use, you know, sheet music. You could use magazine cutouts. If you use one of those free magazines you get from a supermarket, they've got all their lovely festive food in. You could use those pages that have lots of festive colours. You'll often get a page with Christmas trees and fairy lights on, so you could use those. Right, what's next? Let's go in with one of these. I wonder if this is the right size. I think that's a bit small. Let's go with this one. Chop the edges off those. Yeah, that's looking good. And you'll see we'll just work our way all the way to the top. I might not go the whole way, so I can show you some other bits. That's looking nice. And then we'll go in with our sheet music again. And it doesn't have to be a Christmas tree. You could do this with other shapes. So you could do a Christmas wreath or a star, anything really simple. And we'll work our way to the top to make your Christmas tree shape. So I think I'll stop there because you get the idea, right? So you don't even have to use scissors if you don't want. You can just rip the pages and do it that way. Lovely jubbly. Okay, so we have done our cutout pattern stuck onto plain card, and we have done the cutting of different textured paper to go on top of the pattern. So the next thing we can do is look at how we might do some gift tags, because that's super simple, very similar to what we've just done. So what we've got here is a selection of the pattern card, but it's just chopped down quite a bit smaller. So I'm going to grab this one that we made earlier. It's looking pretty dry to me. Now you don't have to cut it to an exact sort of size. It doesn't have to be, you know, exact. I would just sort of go ahead and chop this up however you so wish. So let's go in maybe about here. Now, because this is an A3 piece, you'll get quite a lot of tags out of this. Depending on how many presents you buy, if you think I've just chopped this bit off here, I think that would easily make sort of maybe 4 or 5 tags. If I chop them like this, maybe that could be one big one. So that's at least 4 that you've got just from one sort of row of this. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I just chop another one that's slightly bigger. So if I go sort of like this, that's quite a big tag if you want to go really fancy. And they're so beautiful. Each one is completely unique. They're all covered in patterns and colour. Just think they're stunning and so easy to make. I mean, look at that one. That's lovely. You get these lovely lines sort of crossing it. Gorgeous. So let's use these for tags very quickly. So if I move those away, and then I'll show you how I do them. So again, you could do the same sort of thing. So I'm going to use these for the tags. So essentially I'm going to cut out, let's get a page of the book just here, rip that out. And then I would just almost visually measure up the size of the tag. I would do that by just folding it. So you could do it with scissors. So if I hold that over the top of the page and then grab my scissors, like so, and then just cut it to size, so you know that whatever shape you cut out will fit on that space. So that should be the same size as the tag. Super easy. And then you just might go ahead and draw a shape. So a really easy one is a heart. So a nice big heart that almost covers the space. And the great thing about this is you can, if you go wrong, you can sort of go over it again because you're going to turn it over anyway. And then we would cut that out like this. Also, if you use old books, they're really easy to cut because the pages are so thin. So they're quite nice to cut out with. There we go. So you've got a lovely heart shape there. And then that will very nicely stick on to there. So let's do that now. So again, just going in with the Pritt stick. Okay. There we go. And then we can stick that down, and also you can choose which way you want it to go based on the pattern that you've got underneath. So I think I'm going to go that way around. I'm going to stick that down like so. Ah, beautiful. How lovely is that? Gorgeous. And then all I've got is a hole punch. If you don't have access to a hole punch, then you could probably make a hole yourself. It's not super thick card, so you could do this very carefully with scissors. But if not, I've got one of these. This is like a one hole puncher, but you can use a double one by just sticking it in the corner. And you want to make your hole right there in the center. And then I've just got some standard rope. You could go really fancy. So actually, let me show you. You could get yourself some super fancy rope, like I've got this neon string, or you could get ribbon, entirely up to you, or get the cheapest string available, which is what this is. You can actually get, Chris, I've got string everywhere. Look at this. This is like red and white string that I got from just like the kind of Christmassy stationery section of, I think, probably a pound shop or a Home Bargains, and they're about £1. So maybe we'll go with that because that's nice and Christmassy. And you're just going to cut yourself a sort of length. Depends what you're wrapping, I suppose, is how long you want the string to be, because it depends how big the present is. But I would fold it in half and then put the folded end through the hole. Like so. Open it up and then put your 2 bits through it and tighten. And then you have a beautiful Christmas tag ready to go. I think that looks great. The other option now I've just considered is that we've just cut out this beautiful heart. We could also use that as part of the tag. So we could find another piece like this one fits perfectly, doesn't it? Or this one, let's have a look, see which one fits best. So that's ever so slightly bigger. So what we could do is very carefully, without throwing it everywhere, chop the top off so that it fits that tag, because then you're sort of doubling up on your designs then, because you just cut out a heart and then use the cutout section to create another tag. It just saves a bit of time. That looks lovely, doesn't it? So let's try and stick that down without breaking it. So this time I'm going to put it on the desk so that I don't rip these, because this bit's quite thin, so I want to be super careful with it. Whoop. Oh look, I have ripped it. I've already ripped it. That's okay, because we can stick it all together. It's this very, very thin bit, you see. So what I'm going to do is stick the big bit down first. I've got the other bit stuck to my finger, ready to go. Move it into place. There we go. That's actually made it quite easy because it's broke. It means that I can do this in sections and not have to worry so much. So you could break it on purpose, couldn't you? There we go. Put that down there. Make sure it's in place. Oh, lovely. There you go. You could barely tell. Look at that. That looks great. And you could also, you don't necessarily have to put a hole in and put the string on. You could make this into like a name, what do you call it? Name place name, the tag that you put on your dinner, on your dinner table to tell people where to sit. You could use it as that. So you could write, in fact, let's show you that very quickly because we've got enough time to. You could get yourself a nice big marker. I've got a black Sharpie here to hand. And then you could write people's names on it. So we'll do this very carefully because we've got 2 layers of paper. So I'm going to hold it down and then I'm going to write my name like so. Da, da, da. Give myself a little heart at the top, and then just go over that one more time. Sorry, you can't see as much because I'm left-handed. My left hand is always getting in the way when I'm filming stuff like this. There we go. You could do a little flourish at the bottom. And then that would make a really nice name tag to put on your table on Christmas Day. So, one last thing you could also do for your tags. You could cut out a shape. So let's just do that very quickly. So this isn't white on the back because I've used an old print, but yours will probably be plain. Like this, and then you can cut out your shape with your pattern. So this is very similar to the first Christmas tree card we did, but we could do this and make this into tags. Like so. Ba, 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 ba. Nearly there. Beautiful. So then you've got a lovely star shape, and you can do whatever you want with that. So you could mount that to like your old book is the background, and then add that to a piece of card. So for example, or you could layer up, so you could stick that to one of your other pieces of backgrounds and turn that into a tag, stick that down. You could then add sort of sheet lines of sheet music behind it, so like that, and then add your star to it and turn that into a tag. The possibilities are endless, and you know, bear in mind we've done this with only sort of one maybe two A3 bits of card. So if you were to do this with 4 A4 pieces of card, the amount that you'd get out of it are a decent number of cards, a decent number of tags, and then you're sorted, aren't you? Unless of course you're buying hundreds of presents, which I'm sure some of you are. I will not be making these Christmas tags for my children's presents because there just isn't the time. Maybe just the really, really special ones. So very quickly, I'm going to move all this rubbish out of the way so I can show you and recap on what we've done. So we have spread, using an old store card, spread the paint across the page in various different colours. We've waited for it to dry, and then we've added our marker pen, and then we've done some little details with oil pastel or pencil crayons. And then we've waited for that to dry. And then with that, we can create Christmas cards by cutting out shapes with our patterns, or we can use the pattern as the background to turn into Christmas cards. And we can also add shapes using old books or sheet music to create some beautiful Christmas tags. And I think they look pretty wonderful, don't you? And that, my friends, is all for today. I have successfully created Christmas magic out of very quick painting with a Go Outdoors card. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and I hope you all have a go. Please send us your pictures if you do have a go. I'd love to see. I'm always fascinated to see how people create these backgrounds, because everyone's got a different way of doing it. Everyone's got different favourite colours. Everyone likes doing different shapes. So the outcome will be completely unique to you, but it can be super quick and super easy. So hopefully it will save you a bit of time at Christmas. Probably quicker doing this than going around the shops and buying some cards, right? Hope you all give it a go, and thank you so much for watching. And I will hopefully see you all in the new year. This is my last session for December. I've got to go and start wrapping presents now, I guess. It's going to take me weeks. But thank you very much for watching. I've been Rosie. My business is Rosie and Ramona. I make lots and lots of fun things, and I hope you all have a fabulous Christmas. So thank you so much for having me. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in 2024. Goodbye.